What's up guys, I got a brand new video for you today, and today we're looking at the Sony A7 III, how to set the camera up with the custom functions so that you don't have to go into the menu so often. Even though they simplified them, they're still kind of tough to navigate, and I think that setting your camera up so that you don't have to go into the menu so often is probably a good idea. Sony basically allows you to customize any button to do whatever you want. If you're new to the system, this might help you out, give you some tips on how to set the camera up, at least how I have it set. And if you're not new to the system and you've been using it for a while, maybe I'll give you one of those, I didn't know I could do that. Anyway, I'm feeding my camera HDMI out into the computer. I'm recording the back of the screen. For some reason, in this mode, the screen turns black. So I can't see the back of the camera, so I'm gonna have to look down here at the computer. I'm filming a camera over my shoulder that shows the back of the buttons. But first, what I wanna do is reset the entire camera because I'm gonna start from scratch. That way I can kind of show you how to set everything up. Right now, I already have everything set how I want it to, but I'm gonna reset it just for this video. So let's do that. I'm gonna go into the menu here, and we're at the toolbox. And I'm gonna go all the way to the end here. Settings, reset. I'm just gonna initialize. I might have to redo the date and time. I work late because I got too many things going on right now, and this is when I decide to work. So that's good. So we're in manual photography mode right now. We're gonna go up to the menu here. Everything is basically set up the way I want. I shoot RAW and JPEG. We're gonna do uncompressed. JPEG quality, extra fine. 3:2, that's fine. Long exposure, noise reduction, I turn that off. I don't care about the noise. Drive mode, single shooting. Focus mode, we're gonna go to AFS single shot. Go back into the menu. I usually set it to center. There is occasions where I would shoot wide, but we're gonna keep it on center right now. ISO, we're not gonna go auto. Lock in. My shutter is a little high right now. Meter mode's fine. That's fine. That's fine. White balance, I usually set it to a Kelvin. In here it's around 5,000. Creative style, I usually put on neutral, -1, -2. And picture profile, we'll talk about that in a bit. That's where you get to your S-Log and stuff like that. I actually have a custom profile that I'm gonna have to reload in here because I reset, but it's the EOS HD Canon color profile. It looks kind of like Canon C-Log, and I really love shooting that profile. Okay, so the purple icon is actually where all the video settings are. Right now we're just in HD 60p, put it to 30p for now. S&Q settings, we can talk about that in a bit too. If you want to record in 120 FPS and conform it down to 24 FPS, you can do that. So it'll basically make the slow motion video for you. I have found that the quality is not very good. As you can see, it says 12 megabits per second. So that's pretty low compared to shooting at regular 120 FPS. With this camera, you can actually record proxies to a separate SD card. I'm not gonna do that for this video. Drive speed, normal. Tracking sensitivity, I put on responsive. Audio recording, that's fine. Steady shots on. So here's the main gist of the video. We're gonna talk about this right here. So the custom key, as you can see at the top here, it's got kind of a mountain. Those are the custom settings for photography, and the one under it's got the film strip. That's the custom key set up for video. So we're gonna go to custom key for photos. So the first option we have here is a control wheel, and that's the round ring at the back. I usually set that up to be my aperture, just like you would have on a Canon. So you push the center button where it says not set. We're gonna go through here. So we're gonna navigate over to exposure. We're gonna set that to aperture. So custom button 1, custom button 2, custom button 3, and custom button 4 are all around the camera. So there's C1 and C2 up top. There's C3 over on the left-hand side, and C4 down at the bottom. So I generally like to set up so 1's my white balance and 1 is my focus area. So right now it's actually already set up like that. Custom button 1 is white balance. Custom button 2 is focus area, so I'm gonna leave that. Custom button 3 though, I've actually set up to be my drive mode. So we're gonna roll over here until we find that drive mode. So that way I can actually choose between continuous high or single shot. You can also choose a self timer if you wanna use that as well. So custom button 4 down here at the bottom. I actually like to have that as my picture style or my creative style. So we're gonna go down here. We're gonna go creative style. So if I wanted to change between standard and neutral, I could do that. And that really only affects the JPEG since we're in photo mode. So we're gonna go over here now. So the left button is drive mode. I'm just gonna leave that for now. The right button is the ISO. I like that, I leave that the way it is. And the down button is not set. So you could set that to something. I generally leave it off, but it's one extra button you could use. So we're gonna go over to the third page here. And this is the cool thing. So I generally change the AF on button to eye autofocus. And that way when I'm shooting, I can actually hold that button down and it comes out of its autofocus mode straight to the eye. So it's perfect for doing portrait photography and I really like it. It only stays on as long as you're holding it down. So we're gonna turn that to eye autofocus. And here it is down on eye AF. And that's basically it. So right now the camera's kind of set up. If I push down eye AF, it'll trigger into that. You can see there's a little green light blinking down there and it's actually looking for an eye. And it's kind of a game changer. It's probably the best thing that this camera has going for it. And that's basically how I set the custom function buttons up. So C1 is white balance. C2 is my focus area. So if I wanted to go wide with it, I can move up and go wide. All right, so if we toggle this over to movie mode, we'll go into the menu and we're gonna do custom keys for the movie mode. So the only movie settings I'd really change is maybe being able to change your picture profile. So we can go up to C3 here. I'm gonna change that one first and you can set it to picture profile. So that way you can go in and change your picture profile right on the fly. Also, I like with this camera, you can actually jump to Super 35 mode. That way you can have basically two lenses out of one lens. And we can set that to like custom button 4 here. And right there, APS. So this is what it looks like when you push that button now, it'll jump in. And it's kind of like a digital zoom, but it's not actually digitally zooming. It's just cropping the sensor and bringing it into like Super 35 mode. So we're shooting with a 55 right now. Now we're shooting with something that's closer to like an 85. And if I push C3, that's gonna get us into our picture profiles and you can quickly jump between S-Log and whatever other picture profile you have set up in here. We still have our white balance option in C1 and we still have our focus area on C2. Also a good way to get to a lot of the most common functions, you can actually set your function menu up the same way. So that's the FN button. If you click that, it brings up a lot of common things that you're gonna actually be changing. So right now we're actually in program exposure mode. We want to set that to manual exposure mode. That way the camera's not going to jump around with ISO and stuff like that. And my control wheel is still my aperture, and clicking ISO on the right dial lets me change the ISO. So as I talked about the function buttons, you can actually go down to function menu setup, and in here you have another 12 settings that you can actually change inside of the function button. It's kind of like a quick menu. So basically what I want to do is actually set one of them up to change the audio levels. So since we already know how to change the ISO, I'm going to change the ISO to actually do the audio levels. Okay, audio record level. So now when we go into our function button here, you can see the level right here. And we can actually dial that back so we can monitor our audio. It's obviously way too hot right now. So basically the camera's set up. You don't even have to go into the menus at all unless you want to change frame rates. You can actually set them up as like custom scenes on the dial, so you can set it between 1 and 2. Right now I just got it set to 1080p 30. If I want to change it to 4K, I just have to go into the menu here and I can change that right there. So now that I've switched it over, it's displaying all the menu stuff on the camera and not actually to the feed. The feed right now is a clean HDMI output. So as I talked about S and Q settings, you can actually set that up as a custom button as well. I'm not gonna do that because I don't really use S and Q settings, but you could set this up to technically do a time lapse. If you went in here and set this to like 2 frames per second into a 24 FPS file, it would actually output 2 frames per second in a 24 FPS file, which is actually like a time lapse. So it's only 1080p, but you could do time lapses this way since they took off the Play Memories app. So as I talked about with S and Q, I'm gonna actually set up one button to do S and Q. We'll do the down button because the down button doesn't have anything right now. So we can set the down button to do S and Q, and that will actually set us into something like a time lapse. So now when I push the down button, it'll trigger 2 FPS into a 24 FPS video. Anyway guys, that's basically all I'm gonna get into in the menus. I'm not gonna go any further. I'm not gonna make it any more complicated. That's how I have this camera set up. It's super easy to use now. I don't really have to go into the menus, especially once you memorize what button does what. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give it a thumbs down twice. I'll see you in the next one.